Story 1. The Mirror Convoy. The 18-wheeler behind me had been following my exact movements for 73 miles, and I mean exact. Every lane change, every speed adjustment, every time I scratched my left ear. I first noticed it around 2:47 a.m. on Interstate 40 outside Amarillo, Texas, when I switched lanes to avoid a pothole and the truck behind me swerved at the precise same microsecond. Not a second after. Not in response. Simultaneously. That's when I looked in my side mirror and saw my own face staring back from the other truck's cabin, wearing the same expression of dawning horror I felt spreading across my features. My name is Robert Hayes, and I've been hauling refrigerated goods across the Southwest for 11 years. I know every truck stop, every way station, every highway patrol shift change from El Paso to Oklahoma City. I've driven through blizzards, dust storms, and once through a wildfire that jumped the interstate. I've seen drunk drivers, suicide deer, and a tornado that picked up a sedan and dropped it in a cotton field. I thought I'd seen everything the road could throw at me. I was catastrophically wrong. The truck behind me was identical to mine, a 2019 Peterbilt 579 with a 53-foot refrigerated trailer. Same burgundy paint job, same company logo on the side, same scratch on the passenger door where I'd scraped a loading dock pillar and flagstaff 8 months ago. The license plate was the same. The mud splatter pattern was the same. Even the crack in the windshield that I'd been meaning to fix was identical, running from the lower left corner in the exact same jagged line. I slowed down to 65. The other truck slowed to 65. I accelerated to 73. It matched me. I turned on my left blinker without changing lanes, just testing. In my mirror, the other truck's left blinker activated in perfect sync. My hands were shaking on the wheel. This wasn't possible. Truck convoys maintain following distance. Drivers have reaction times. Physics exists. Yet this truck was moving with me like we were connected by invisible rods. A perfect mirror image, except it wasn't mirrored. It was exact. Same side, same movements. I grabbed my CB radio. Breaker, breaker, this is Big Chill heading east on I-40 at mile marker 89. Got a truck on my tail matching my every move. Driver, if you can hear me, back off. Static. Then my own voice came through the speaker. Breaker, breaker, this is Big Chill heading east on I-40 at mile marker 89. Got a truck on my tail matching my every move. Driver, if you can hear me, back off. The exact same words, the exact same cadence, the exact same breath I'd taken mid-sentence. I hadn't transmitted that. I'd spoken it. But somehow it came back through the radio in real time. The temperature gauge on my dashboard showed the reefer unit holding steady at 34 degrees. I was hauling 2,000 pounds of beef to a distributor in Oklahoma City. Normal cargo, normal route, nothing that should attract whatever this was. I tried to rationalize it. Coincidence, shared frequency causing echo, fatigue-induced hallucination. But hallucinations don't show up in 3 different mirrors. Hallucinations don't have working brake lights. I decided to test it further. I rolled down my window and stuck my left arm out, waving it in a specific pattern. 3 circles, 2 pumps up and down, a diagonal slash. In my passenger mirror, the other driver did the exact same motion at the exact same time. The cold March wind bit at my skin. I pulled my arm back in and saw goosebumps rising on my flesh. In the mirror, the other driver pulled his arm back in. This wasn't someone following my lead. This was synchronization at a quantum level that shouldn't exist in macro-scale reality. I floored the accelerator. My truck lurched forward, the engine roaring as I pushed it to 85, 90, 95 miles per hour. The other truck matched me perfectly, maintaining the same 60-foot distance. We blew past 3 cars and a sedan. Those vehicles showed up in my mirrors normally. They fell behind as we passed. But the truck stayed locked in position. I slammed on the brakes. The anti-lock system shuddered. My cargo shifted with a heavy thud. The other truck braked at the exact same intensity, stopping exactly when I stopped, the same cargo shift sound echoing across the dark highway. That's when I realized I could hear it, not just on the CB. I could hear the other truck's engine through my closed windows, the exact same pitch and rumble as my own engine, overlapping but slightly out of phase, creating a nauseating harmonic frequency that made my teeth ache and my vision blur at the edges. The sound wasn't coming from behind me. It was coming from everywhere, inside the cabin, inside my head. I veered onto the shoulder without signaling. Gravel crunched under my tires. The other truck followed onto the shoulder, gravel crunching in stereo. I pulled to a complete stop, put the truck in park and killed the engine. Silence. Blessed silence. I sat there in the darkness, hands trembling, breath coming in short gasps. Looked in the side mirror. The other truck had stopped too, engine off. The driver, my doppelganger, sat in his cabin, hands on the wheel, staring forward. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe 5 minutes, maybe 30. Time felt wrong. The digital clock on my dashboard was stuck at 2:47 a.m., the exact time I'd first noticed the truck. My phone showed 3:22 a.m., but the seconds weren't advancing. Stuck on 57. Still 57, still 57. I tapped the screen. The phone was warm, too warm, and the battery indicator was draining as I watched. 83%, 64%, 41%, 18%. I got out of the truck. The cold desert air hit me like a physical blow. Above me, the stars were wrong. I've navigated by constellations for years. Orion's belt should have been to the southeast. It was directly overhead. The Big Dipper was upside down. The moon was full and bright, which was impossible because I'd seen a crescent moon when I'd started my route 6 hours ago. 6 hours don't make a new moon cycle. Behind me, I heard a truck door open, footsteps on gravel. I turned around slowly. The other driver was walking toward me. He looked exactly like me. Same flannel shirt, same Carhartt jacket, same steel-toed boots with the left one's lace frayed where it caught on the truck step. Same 2-day stubble, same scar on his right cheek from a bar fight in Tucson in 2017. He was even wearing the same expression I could feel on my own face, absolute terror mixed with sick fascination. We stood 15 feet apart, staring at each other. Neither of us spoke. What do you say to yourself? The silence stretched out, broken only by the wind whistling across the desert and a sound like breathing that came from everywhere and nowhere. Then he smiled. I wasn't smiling. He smiled. And it wasn't a human expression. The corners of his mouth went too far back, revealing too many teeth. Teeth that were too white and too sharp and too numerous. You're driving my route, he said, except he wasn't speaking. I was hearing the words inside my skull in my own internal monologue voice. I don't understand, I said aloud, and simultaneously heard the words echo in my mind, spoken in the same voice but from him. You took a wrong turn, he said without speaking. Back at the exit 73. You turned right. You should have turned left. Now you're here, with me, in the between place. I remembered exit 73, a standard fork. GPS said right, I turned right, nothing unusual. But now that he mentioned it, I couldn't remember anything specific about the last 70 miles, just driving. Just darkness and white lines and the hypnotic rhythm of the road. Had I been awake? Had I been asleep? Was there a difference? How do I get back? I asked. He tilted his head and I felt my own head tilt without my consent. Our movements were syncing again. You don't, he said. You're part of the convoy now. Every driver who takes the wrong turn joins us. We drive the same route forever, the same miles, the same time. We are the ghosts on the highway. The phantom trucks people glimpse in their peripheral vision. The engine sounds people hear but can't source. I tried to run. My legs moved, but I wasn't going anywhere. Looking down, I saw my feet moving in running motion, but the ground wasn't passing beneath me. I was locked in place, running on an invisible treadmill. The other me laughed, a sound like grinding gears and tearing metal. Then the world shifted. Suddenly I was in my truck cabin, engine running, dashboard clock showing 2:47 a.m. I was driving 72 miles per hour on Interstate 40. In my side mirror, there were now 2 trucks behind me, both identical to mine, both drivers wearing my face, one smiling that too wide smile, one screaming silently. I looked forward. The road stretched into infinity, the white lines strobing past in endless rhythm. The mile markers weren't counting up anymore. Mile 89, mile 89, mile 89, forever mile 89. In my rearview mirror, a third truck joined the convoy. The driver looked confused, checking his mirrors, slowing down, speeding up, waving his arm out the window in bewilderment. I watched him mouth words into a CB radio, watched the recognition dawn, watched him see me, see us, see what he was becoming. The convoy grows. Every night, every wrong turn, every driver who doesn't realize they've crossed over until it's too late. We drive the same stretch of highway forever, locked at 2:47 a.m. on March 14th, 2023. My reefer unit still holds at 34 degrees. My cargo will never spoil. My destination will never arrive. Sometimes I see the real world passing us, transparent like a ghost image layered over our endless road. Real truckers driving real routes, unaware of the convoy moving through them like smoke. I try to warn them, I flash my lights, I blast my horn, but they don't see us. Or maybe they do. A flicker in their peripheral vision, a strange echo on the CB, a feeling of being watched from a truck that disappears when they look directly at it. I've been driving this stretch for what feels like years now. The convoy behind me has grown to 47 trucks, 47 versions of me from different times, different moments, all the wrong turns taken at exit 73 across different nights, all of us trapped in the same loop. Sometimes we sync our movements, all turning our heads at once, all reaching for our CB radios, all becoming one massive entity pretending to be individual drivers. The newest addition, Truck 47, is still fighting it. I can see him in the far back, trying to break formation, trying to exit the highway. There are no exits anymore, just the endless road and mile marker 89 and 2:47 a.m. forever. Eventually he'll stop fighting. They all do. I did. Sometimes I wonder who I was before this. Robert Hayes hauling refrigerated beef to Oklahoma City. Did I have a family, friends, a life beyond this highway? The memories are fading, replaced by the eternal present of driving, following, being followed. We are the mirror convoy, and we're always recruiting. If you're driving I-40 at night and you see exit 73, turn left. Whatever your GPS says, turn left. Because if you turn right, you'll see me in your mirror, and I'll be wearing your face. Story 2. The Passenger Manifest. The hitchhiker appeared in my passenger seat without the door ever opening, and the first thing she said was, "Don't stop driving or we'll both cease to exist." I had been reaching for my coffee and my hand froze, mid-air. She was wearing a waitress uniform from a diner that had closed down in 1987. I knew because my father had taken me there as a child, and the logo on her name tag was identical down to the specific font they'd used for Mabel's roadside. Her name tag read Christine. She looked about 25, but her eyes held something ancient and terrified. My name is Patricia Sullivan. I run medical supplies along Route 66 from Chicago to Los Angeles, specializing in time-sensitive pharmaceuticals that can't be flown due to pressure sensitivity. On March 23, 2023, I was hauling $400,000 worth of experimental gene therapy to a children's hospital in Pasadena. My cargo requires constant temperature monitoring and zero vibration above specific thresholds. I take my job seriously. I've never been late. I've never damaged goods. I've never picked up hitchhikers. Until Christine appeared inside my moving truck at 75 miles per hour on a stretch of desert highway with no on-ramps for 40 miles in either direction. "How did you—" I started, but she cut me off. "I don't know. None of us know how we get here. We just appear. In moving vehicles. On Route 66, between mile markers 243 and 718, we can't appear in stopped vehicles. We can't stay if the vehicle stops. The moment you brake, the moment the wheels stop turning, we—" She made a gesture like smoke dispersing. "We stop existing. And so do you. Because by then you've seen us, and that makes you part of it." I should have called the police. Should have pulled over despite her warning. Should have done anything except keep driving while a woman who had materialized from nothing sat in my passenger seat speaking in riddles. But something in her voice carried absolute conviction. And when I looked at her, really looked, I could see the dashboard through her body, faintly, like she was only partly there. "How many?" I asked, keeping my eyes on the road, maintaining exactly 75 miles per hour on cruise control. "In this truck? You're the first living driver I've appeared to in—" She paused, seeming to calculate. 3 months? Maybe 4? Time works differently for us. The last driver was Harold something. Nice man. Hauled furniture. He stopped at mile marker 297 because his trailer tire blew. The moment his truck fully stopped, he looked at me and said, 'I understand now.' Then we both just faded, like we were drawings being erased. But I came back. I always come back, in the next vehicle and the next, forever passing through." I checked my mirrors compulsively, half expecting to see something wrong, some sign that reality had broken. But the desert looked normal: scrub brush, distant mesas, the infinite asphalt ribbon of Route 66, stretching through Arizona's emptiness. My cargo sensors showed green, temperature holding at 4 degrees Celsius, vibration within acceptable range, everything normal except the translucent woman in my passenger seat. "What are you?" I asked. "A passenger." She laughed, a hollow sound. "That's what we call ourselves, the passenger manifest. We're the people who died on Route 66 while in motion. Car accidents, heart attacks while driving. One guy choked on a sandwich doing 80 miles per hour and crashed 3 miles later. A woman had a brain aneurysm. A kid on a motorcycle hit by a drunk driver. We all died in motion, and now we can't stop. We exist only in the movement, only in the driving. We appear in trucks, in cars, in motorcycles. We stay as long as the vehicle keeps moving, and if it stops—" She made that dispersing gesture again. "So I just drive forever?" I asked, anger rising through the fear. "I just keep going and going until I run out of gas?" "Gas tanks don't run empty when we're passengers," Christine said quietly. "Check your gauge." I looked, 3/4 full, but I'd been driving for 6 hours since my last fill-up. Should have been under half. I watched the needle as I drove. It didn't move, stayed at 3/4 exactly, defying physics and fuel consumption and basic reality. "The rules are different on this stretch," Christine continued. "Between those mile markers, the road changes. It keeps you going. It wants vehicles in motion. It feeds on movement, on the endless forward momentum. Your fuel won't run out. Your tires won't wear down. You won't get tired, you'll just drive. And I'll just sit here until you stop." "What if I don't stop?" I challenged. "What if I just keep driving? I've got pharmaceuticals that need to reach Los Angeles by tomorrow night. I can make it if I don't stop." She turned to look at me fully, and I saw sadness in those ancient eyes. "You can't drive past mile marker 718. Something happens there. The road ends." Not physically, but ends. I've ridden with 17 drivers who tried to push through. 16 stopped before reaching it because they couldn't handle me anymore, couldn't handle knowing I was here, couldn't drive with a ghost in their passenger seat. One driver made it to 718. His name was Marcus Chen. He was determined. Said he'd driven through hallucinations before, driven through exhaustion, driven through pain. He kept his eyes forward and his foot steady, and when he crossed mile marker 718, she trailed off. What happened? I pressed. We appeared back at mile marker 243, both of us, instantly, no transition. 1 second we were at 718, next second we were at 243. The loop restarted. His trip odometer had reset. His GPS recalculated from the new position. He looked at me and started screaming. Drove the truck into the desert at 90 miles per hour. It rolled 4 times. And the moment it stopped rolling, she made the gesture again. My hands tightened on the wheel. This couldn't be real. Shock. Hallucination from too many hours on the road. Bad coffee at the last truck stop. But Christine sat there, solid enough to cast a faint shadow, translucent enough to see through, real enough to terrify. Mile marker 256 flashed past. I was 26 miles into the impossible zone. 462 miles to go before the loop point. Over 6 hours of driving with a ghost beside me. Tell me about yourself, I said, trying to ground myself in conversation, in human connection, in anything normal. Christine, you died in 1987? 1992, she corrected. The diner closed in 87, but I kept the uniform, sentimental. I was driving to Las Vegas, had a job interview at the Luxor. New start, you know. Then the semi-truck drifted into my lane at mile marker 304, head-on collision. I remember the impact. Remember my sternum cracking against the steering wheel. Remember tasting blood. Then I was standing on the side of the road watching the EMTs cover my body. Watched them close my eyes. Felt nothing. Then suddenly I was in motion again, sitting in a truck like yours, and the driver was screaming because a dead woman had appeared in his cab. The temperature in my cabin had dropped. I could see my breath. The heating system was running full blast, but the cold was spreading from Christine's seat, seeping through the truck like ice water through cloth. There are 43 of us, Christine continued, the passenger manifest. We know each other even though we never meet. We share the knowledge somehow. 43 people who died in motion on Route 66 between markers 243 and 718. We appear randomly in vehicles. Sometimes multiple passengers appear in one vehicle. Sometimes we go weeks between appearances, but we always come back. We're trapped in the movement. Mile marker 279, I was sweating despite the cold. My pharmaceutical cargo was sensitive. If the truck's systems failed, if the temperature controls broke down, thousands of dollars of life-saving medicine would be ruined. Children would suffer. But if I stopped to check the systems, Christine said we'd both cease existing. Which was worse? Which risk was acceptable? How do I know you're real? I asked. How do I know I'm not just exhausted seeing things? You don't, she said simply. But you feel it, don't you? The wrongness. The way time feels stretched. The way the mile markers seem too evenly spaced. The way there hasn't been another vehicle on this road since I appeared. She was right. I hadn't seen another car, another truck, anything. Route 66 isn't major interstate traffic, but it's not empty either. Tourist traffic, local vehicles, other truckers. There should have been someone, but the road stretched empty in all directions, just me and the endless asphalt and Christine. My CB radio crackled. Big pharmaceutical rig, this is Highway Angel, you got your ears on? A trucker's voice, male, concerned. I grabbed the CB. This is Big Pharmaceutical, go ahead, Highway Angel. Ma'am, you've got passengers in your cab, I can see them through your windows. How many you got in there? I looked at Christine. Only Christine. Looked in my passenger mirror. Behind me, filling the sleeper berth, I saw them. 42 other figures. Men and women of different ages, different decades, different deaths. All translucent. All staring at me. All wearing expressions of eternal desperation. "Oh God," I whispered. "We all appear when someone notices us," Christine said. "The CB radio connected you to another driver. He saw us. Now we're all visible. Now you can see the full manifest." The highway angel's voice came back, distorted now. "Ma'am, I don't know what's happening in your truck, but you need to stop. You need to pull over. There are people in there who don't look right. They don't look—" Static. The radio went dead. In my mirrors, the figures were moving, pressing forward, reaching out. Their mouths moved silently, pleading, warning, speaking words I couldn't hear but could feel in my bones. "Don't stop. Keep driving. Don't stop. Keep driving." Mile marker 314. Halfway through the zone, my hands were locked on the wheel, white-knuckled, shaking. The speedometer held at exactly 75 miles per hour despite my foot pressure varying on the pedal. The truck was driving itself, maintaining perfect speed, perfect trajectory. I was just cargo now, just another passenger. One of the figures in back looked familiar, an older man, maybe 65, wearing a Pearl Jam t-shirt and jeans. I recognized him from a truck stop photo board, a memorial for drivers who died on the road. Harold something. The furniture hauler Christine had mentioned. "He stopped," I said, voice breaking. "You said he stopped and ceased existing, but he's here, behind me." "When we cease existing," Christine said softly, "we cease existing as living drivers. We join the manifest. We become permanent passengers. Harold is with us now. Forever." The implications hit me like a physical blow. If I stopped, I wouldn't die. I'd become one of them, translucent, trapped, appearing randomly in vehicles, riding forever, unable to stop, unable to leave, unable to exist outside of motion. An eternal passenger on Route 66's endless stretch. "What if I crash?" I asked desperately. "What if I intentionally crash, roll the truck, destroy it while I'm still moving?" "Crashes count as stopping," a new voice said. One of the other passengers, a teenage boy wearing a leather jacket and motorcycle patches. "The moment the vehicle stops functioning as a vehicle, the moment forward momentum ceases, it's over. You join us." Mile marker 371. I had been driving for over 2 hours with the dead. My cargo sensors showed the temperature climbing, 6 degrees, 8 degrees, 10 degrees. The systems were failing. The medicine was being ruined. Thousands of dollars, sick children. But if I stopped to investigate, to fix it, to save the cargo— "Let it fail," Christine urged. "Let the medicine spoil. Your life is worth more than cargo." But was it? If I kept driving forever, if I never delivered, never returned, never saw my family again, what was my life worth? And when I eventually stopped, because everyone stops eventually from exhaustion or despair or simple human need, I'd become a passenger myself. Just another ghost in the manifest. Mile marker 432. The sun was setting, painting the desert in deep reds and purples. The figures behind me had multiplied, not 43 anymore, but hundreds, thousands, filling the entire sleeper berth, pressing against the walls, their translucent bodies overlapping in a nightmare mass of the dead. "What's happening?" I gasped. "You're seeing all of them now," Christine whispered. "Everyone who ever died in motion on Route 66, not just our section. The entire route from Chicago to Los Angeles. 8 decades of accidents, thousands of deaths, all trapped in eternal movement." The truck felt heavy now, weighted down by invisible cargo more burdensome than any physical load. The steering wheel fought against my grip. The pedals resisted my feet. The truck wanted to stop. The dead wanted to stop. I wanted to stop, but stopping meant joining them. Mile marker 509. My phone rang. My daughter. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. 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 12 times. Each ring felt like a hook in my chest, pulling me toward normalcy, toward life, toward any reason to stop this nightmare and accept the consequences. Answer it, Christine said. Use the hands-free, keep driving, but answer. I pressed the button. Emma? Mom? My daughter's voice, 11 years old, scared. Mom, where are you? Dad says you're late. He says your truck's tracker shows you going in circles. He says you should have stopped at Flagstaff 4 hours ago. Mom, are you okay? In circles. Going in circles. I looked at my GPS. The route showed me driving straight, progressing forward. But the tracker my company monitored must have shown different. Must have shown the loop. Mile markers 243 to 718 over and over the road, folding back on itself in dimensions my GPS couldn't perceive. I'm fine, honey, I lied. Just a detour. I'll be there soon. You sound weird, Mom. You sound scared. I was scared, terrified. But I couldn't tell her why. Couldn't explain the thousands of translucent dead filling my truck. Couldn't describe the impossible loop I was trapped in. Couldn't admit that her mother might never come home. Might become just another ghost riding the highways forever. I love you, Emma, I said. Mom, you're scaring me. Dad's calling the police. He thinks... The call dropped. Not. Ended. Dropped. Like I'd driven through a dead zone, except my phone showed full signal. The dead had cut the connection. They didn't want interference. Didn't want me to have reasons to stop. Mile marker 603, over 5 hours now. My body screamed for rest. My bladder ached. My eyes burned. But I felt no tiredness. Christine was right. The road was sustaining me, keeping me alert, keeping me driving. An unnatural endurance forced upon me by whatever curse trapped this highway section. What happens at 718, I asked. Really? What happens if I try to break through? The loop resets, Christine said. You return to 243, but it's worse each time. Each loop, more passengers appear. Each loop, the truck gets heavier. Each loop, reality gets thinner. Eventually, the truck itself becomes translucent. Eventually, you become visible to other drivers, and they can see you, see your ghost truck, see your passenger load of the dead. And then you're just part of the highway, a phantom rig people glimpse and report and no one believes in. Mile marker 671. 47 miles to the loop point. I could see it ahead somehow, a shimmer in the air at the horizon, a place where the road folded back on itself like a Mobius strip. I'm going to try, I said. I'm going to try to break through. You can't, Christine said sadly. They all try. It never works. Then I'll be the first. I floored the accelerator. The truck surged forward, 80 miles per hour, 90, 100. The cargo sensors shrieked warnings. The reefer unit failed completely. The pharmaceuticals were destroyed. But I was past caring about cargo. I needed to break free, needed to escape. Mile marker 693. The passengers behind me were screaming silently, mouths open, faces contorted. They knew what was coming. They'd seen this before. They'd been through this with every driver who tried. Mile marker 707. The shimmer was closer now. A visible distortion where the road met itself. Through it, I could see mile marker 243, see myself approaching from the other side. See the beginning of the loop waiting. Mile marker 715. Christine grabbed my arm. Her hand was solid now, ice cold, real. Patricia, she said, if you cross, you'll loop. But if you stop before crossing, there's a chance. A small chance. Some drivers stop here right before the fold and they wake up. Back in normal reality before they entered the zone like it never happened. You said stopping means ceasing to exist, I countered. Stopping in the zone means that. But stopping ain't the boundary at the exact moment before the loop. Some drivers report waking up at mile marker 243 in normal time, no passengers, no loop. It's risky. Most who try it just join us, but some escape. Mile marker 717, 1 mile left. The shimmer was now a visible wall across the highway, a membrane between the loop and the reset. I made my choice. I slammed the brakes. The truck screeched, tires smoking, cargo crashing forward, the entire rig shuddering as it fought against 75 miles per hour of momentum. The passengers disappeared. Christine vanished mid-sentence. The cold evaporated. The truck stopped 6 feet before the shimmer. I sat in silence, engine running, hands shaking, breath coming in sobs. Then I blinked, and I was at mile marker 243. Again. My cargo sensors showed green. Temperature holding steady at 4 degrees. Full tank of gas. My phone showed the time I'd first entered the zone, like the last 5 hours had been erased. But Christine sat in my passenger seat, wearing that waitress uniform, wearing that sad smile. "Welcome to Loop 2, she said. I drive Route 66 now in permanent cycle. Mile markers 243 to 718, over and over, never stopping, never escaping. I've completed 37 loops. Christine says the record is 412 loops before the driver went insane and deliberately crashed. My daughter stopped calling. My company's tracker shows me going in circles. Eventually they'll declare me dead. Eventually I'll stop from sheer despair. And then I'll join the manifest permanently, appearing randomly in trucks, warning other drivers, watching them try to escape, watching them fail. Sometimes in Loop 38 now, I see other trucks in the zone, ghost rigs like mine, translucent, filled with passengers. We're all driving the same stretch, all trapped in our own loops, all occasionally passing through each other like smoke through smoke. The road is crowded with the dead. And it's always recruiting. Story 3. The Wait Station. The way station appeared at mile marker 666 on Highway 93, and that should have been my first warning. I pulled my Freightliner Cascadia onto the scale platform at 4:17 a.m. on November 3, 2022, hauling 40,000 pounds of industrial paper rolls to Seattle. The digital board above the scale house flashed my truck number, then displayed a weight reading that made my stomach drop. 87,400 pounds. 22,000 pounds overweight. Except I had the bill of lading right on my dashboard. 40,000 pounds loaded, verified, sealed. My truck empty weighs 25,000. The math didn't work. The scale was wrong. My name is Marcus Delgado, 23 years over the road, and I know trucks. I know weight distribution, load calculation, every dot regulation by heart. I've been through thousands of weigh stations across 48 states. This reading was impossible. I radioed the scale house. Got an error here, dispatch. My load's 40,000 certified. Something's wrong with your equipment. No response. The scale house windows were dark. No vehicles ahead of me, none behind me on the highway. At 4 a.m. in rural Nevada, that wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the complete absence of any scale operator. Weigh stations run automated systems, but there's always someone monitoring, always a response to radio contact. I tried again. Weigh station operator, this is truck 729er requesting supervisor. Scale reading is impossible. The digital board changed. Your weight is correct. Proceed to inspection bay 3. Inspection. At 4 a.m. For an overweight reading that couldn't be accurate. Every instinct I had screamed to skip it, pull back onto the highway, ignore this obvious malfunction. But skipping a mandatory inspection meant license suspension, company penalties, potential criminal charges if the DOT pressed it. I had to comply. I pulled forward to Bay 3, a covered area with inspection lights and a pull-through scale. As I eased the truck into position, the lights flickered on. Not white fluorescence, but a sickly yellow-green that made everything look diseased. The walls of the bay were concrete, water-stained and ancient. The equipment looked decades old, analog gauges instead of digital displays, rust on the metal framework. The scale under my wheels engaged with a heavy clunk. The analog needle swung up. 87,400 pounds. Still impossible. I killed the engine and climbed down from the cab, intending to inspect my trailer, check for some insane explanation. Maybe someone had loaded concrete blocks into my trailer without my knowledge. Maybe my kingpin had somehow gained mass through quantum teleportation. Anything was more reasonable than the alternative, that the way station itself was wrong, that I was caught in some bureaucratic nightmare of equipment malfunction and regulatory inflexibility. The trailer doors were still sealed. The seal number matched my bill of lading. The paper rolls inside looked exactly as they had when I'd loaded them in Portland 18 hours ago. I walked around the trailer, checking tires, checking suspension, looking for any sign of additional weight. Nothing. The truck looked normal, but the scale didn't lie, or wasn't supposed to lie. Scales are calibrated, certified, tested by state inspectors. They don't malfunction by 22,000 pounds. A door opened in the scale house. A man walked out wearing a DOT inspection uniform that looked vintage, wrong shade of blue, wrong style of badge, like he'd stepped out of a 1970s safety manual. He was in his 50s, graying hair, hard eyes. He carried a clipboard and approached my truck with the slow, methodical walk of someone performing a routine inspection. Except nothing about this felt routine. "License and registration," he said without preamble. I handed them over. He examined them under the yellow-green lights, making notes on his clipboard. His pen made scratching sounds too loud in the silent bay. No highway noise, no wind, no ambient sound at all except that scratching. "You're overweight," he stated. "The scale's malfunctioning," I countered. "I've got certified load till documentation. 40,000 pounds loaded in Portland, verified by their certified scale. Your equipment is reading 22,000 pounds more than possible." He looked at me with those hard eyes. "Our scale is accurate. You're hauling more than your manifest claims. That's a federal violation. I'm going to need you to unload for manual verification." Unload. 40,000 pounds of industrial paper rolls, each roll weighing between 800 and 2,000 pounds. In a way station bay at 4 a.m. in the middle of Nevada, without equipment. This wasn't standard procedure. This was insanity. "I don't have the equipment to unload here," I protested. "I need a warehouse with a forklift. This is unreasonable, and you know it." Federal regulation allows inspection officers to demand manual verification of suspicious cargo. He flipped his clipboard around, showing me a document that looked official, stamped, legal. "You're suspected of transporting undeclared cargo. I'm authorizing a full inspection." This was wrong. Every procedure was wrong. But DOT inspectors have enormous authority. If I refused, my truck would be impounded, my license would be suspended, my career would be over. So I did the only thing I could. I opened the trailer and started the impossible task of moving paper rolls. Except when I opened the doors, the trailer interior looked wrong. The load had shifted. Paper rolls that should have been stable, strapped, secure, now filled the trailer in disorganized chaos. And between the rolls, I saw things. Objects that shouldn't be there. Shapes I couldn't quite focus on. Wrapped in shadows despite the bay lights. The inspector climbed into the trailer, navigating between rolls, examining the cargo with a flashlight. "Here," he called out, pointing. "Undeclared cargo right here." I climbed in after him. He was indicating a space between two paper rolls where nothing existed. Empty space. But as I looked closer, the shadows seemed solid, seemed to have mass. The inspector reached into the shadow and pulled out an object. A canvas bag, old, stained, heavy. He unzipped it. Inside were bones, human bones. A skull, ribs, long bones of arms and legs, still articulated, still connected by desiccated tissue. The smell hit me. Old death, dried and mummified, but still recognizably corpse. I stumbled backward, nearly falling from the trailer. "Undeclared human remains," the inspector said calmly. "That's a felony. Federal and state charges. You're under arrest." "That's not mine," I shouted. "I loaded certified industrial paper. Someone put that there. Someone planted—" "The trailer was sealed," he interrupted. "Seal intact. No tampering. Therefore, you loaded this cargo. You are responsible." He was pulling more bags from the shadows now. More bones. Dozen bags. Dozens of bodies worth of remains, each bag appearing from impossible spaces. Between the paper rolls, each bag adding weight that shouldn't exist. The scale reading suddenly made terrible sense. Not the paper rolls alone. The bones. The bodies. The mass of death hidden in my trailer. But it was impossible. The seal was intact. I'd watched the trailer get loaded. This was planted evidence, impossible planted evidence that appeared from nothing. "I want a lawyer," I said, voice shaking. "I want my company representative. I'm not saying anything else." The inspector smiled. It wasn't a human expression. "You're not going to get a lawyer, Marcus. You're not going to make a phone call. You're not leaving this way station. Because you're not really here. You died 3 miles back. Highway 93, mile marker 663, fell asleep at the wheel. Crossed the center line, head-on collision with a fuel tanker. You and the tanker driver both killed instantly. This way station is where you stop, where your journey ends, where you face what you've been hauling." I ran, bolted from the trailer, sprinted across the bay toward my truck. The inspector didn't chase me. Just stood there, holding a bag of bones, smiling that inhuman smile. I reached my cab, yanked the door open, climbed in. Turned the key. The engine didn't start, turned it again. Nothing. The dashboard lights were dead. The entire truck was inert, a 40-ton sculpture of metal that would never move again. In the rearview mirror, I saw them emerging from my trailer. Figures made of shadow and bone reconstructing themselves from the bags, shambling corpses walking with disjointed movements. The paper rolls were shifting, unfolding, revealing more bodies packed between them. Not bones now, fresh corpses, victims, people I recognized. The hitchhiker I'd refused to pick up in Arizona 3 years ago, found dead a week later, murdered by the next driver who stopped. The woman whose broken-down car I'd passed in Utah, too, rushed to help. Died from exposure that night. The truck stop worker I'd ignored when she asked for a ride to escape an abusive husband. Obituary 2 months later. Every person I could have helped but didn't. Every moment I'd chosen my schedule over someone's need. Every time I'd driven past suffering because stopping would make me late. They surrounded the truck, pressing against the windows, their faces, some rotted, some fresh, some just skull, all looking at me with accusation. The inspector walked up, tapping on my driver's window. "Your manifest was incomplete," he said through the glass. "You hauled more than certified cargo. You hauled responsibility. You hauled guilt. You hauled every consequence of every choice to keep driving, and now the weight is catching up." The truck began to sink, not falling, sinking, like the pavement had turned to water or mud. The wheels were disappearing into the scale platform. The bodies pressed harder against the windows. The glass was cracking. They were going to get in. They were going to pull me into my trailer with them, pack me in with the cargo, add my body to the manifest. I tried the door, locked, tried the window, wouldn't roll down. Tried to climb into the sleeper berth to escape through the roof vent. The walls were closing in. The entire cabin was shrinking, compressing, the metal folding inward like a crushed can. The body's hands were coming through the windows now, reaching, grabbing, pulling. "Stop!" I screamed. I'm sorry I didn't help. I'm sorry I kept driving." The inspector's face appeared at the window, inches from mine, on the outside despite the hands pulling at me from all sides. Sorry doesn't reduce the weight, he said. Sorry doesn't change the manifest. You hauled death. Now death hauls you. The cabin collapsed completely. I was packed into the darkness with the bodies crushed together in impossible compression. I could feel bones pressing against my flesh, cold hands holding my arms, teeth against my neck. We were all cargo now, all part of the load. Then I woke up, in my truck, on Highway 93, mile marker 663, 4:15 a.m. 2 minutes before I'd seen the way station, my cargo was intact, my truck was running, but my dashboard showed a warning light I'd never seen before, a scale icon glowing red flashing, and underneath text scrolling across the digital display, next mandatory inspection 2.1 miles. Mile marker 666. The way station was coming, was always coming. I could try to avoid it, drive past, refuse to stop. But the way station was on both sides of the highway now, appearing in my side mirrors, stretching across the road ahead. There was no avoiding it. There was no escape from mandatory inspection. I pulled onto the scale platform at 4:17 a.m. exactly as before. Exactly as always. The digital board flashed my weight, 87,400 pounds. The inspector walked out of the scale house carrying his clipboard. The bodies were already emerging from my trailer. This is my loop. This is my weight station. I die at mile marker 663 and I arrive at mile marker 666 and I am weighed and found wanting. The manifest of my guilt outweighs any cargo I haul. And every time I go through inspection, more bodies appear. More people I failed. More weight I have to carry. The scale never balances. The inspection never ends. And I keep driving toward the way station over and over, dying and arriving and being crushed, dying and arriving and being crushed. Sometimes I see other trucks at the way station, other drivers going through their own inspections, their own manifestations of guilt. We don't speak. We don't acknowledge each other. We just wait for the inspector to call us forward, to weigh our souls, to crush us under the weight of what we hauled through life. If you're driving Highway 93 and you see a way station at mile marker 666, don't stop. Drive past. Ignore the mandatory inspection signs, because the weight they measure isn't cargo, and once you're on their scale, you never leave. Story 4. The broadcast. The radio station came through on AM 530 at exactly midnight, and the DJ knew my name, not my handle, my birth name. Marcus, you're listening to K Void, the voice of the empty spaces, she purred through the speakers. We're broadcasting live from nowhere and everywhere, and tonight's dedication hour is all for you. I'd been scanning through static trying to catch a weather report, and suddenly this crystal clear signal in the dead heart of Wyoming, where AM radio should be picking up nothing but darkness and distance. My name is Marcus Chen. I haul livestock feed across the mountain west, Montana to Colorado, Wyoming to Idaho, always through the lonely spaces where towns are 50 miles apart and cell towers are myths. On January 8, 2023, I was running alfalfa pellets from Billings to Cheyenne, a route I'd driven 200 times. Interstate 25 south through Wyoming, empty highway cutting through snow-covered nothing. My truck's headlights the only illumination for miles. The DJ's voice was smooth, professional, intimate, like she was sitting in my passenger seat instead of transmitting from some unknown location. We've been watching you, Marcus, monitoring your route. You're a regular in our broadcast area, though you've never tuned in before. That changes tonight. Tonight you're our featured guest, whether you want to be or not. I should have changed the station, should have killed the radio entirely. But her voice carried a hypnotic quality, and the alternative was silence and my own thoughts. 12 hours of driving still ahead. Anything was better than the monotony. So I listened. Our first caller tonight is Linda from mile marker 147, the DJ announced. Linda has a message for you, Marcus. Go ahead, caller. A woman's voice, older, trembling. Marcus Chen, the trucker? I need you to know I'm still here. At mile marker 147 where you didn't stop. Where you saw my car on the shoulder, flashers on, and you kept driving. It was negative 15 degrees. My phone was dead. You were the only vehicle that passed in 3 hours. I froze to death waiting for help that never came. I'm still here. I'll always be here. And every time you drive past mile marker 147, I'm standing on the shoulder watching you keep going. My blood turned to ice water. I remembered that night, 15 months ago, broken down sedan, flashers blinking. I'd noticed it. I'd thought about stopping. But it was late, I was behind schedule, and stopping for every stranded vehicle would mean never making deliveries. I'd assumed she had a phone, assumed someone else would help, assumed it wasn't my responsibility. I'd read about the woman later, found dead in her car, Linda Kowalski, 63, froze to death waiting for assistance. The news article had gutted me, but I'd rationalized it. Not my fault. I couldn't save everyone. I had a job to do. I didn't know, I stammered into the empty cabin. Oh, Marcus can hear you, the DJ interrupted smoothly. This is interactive broadcasting. Our callers speak, our guest listens. Let's take our next caller. James from mile marker 203. Go ahead, James. A man's voice, younger, angry. You cut me off, asshole, last April. I was merging from the on-ramp and you accelerated, forced me onto the shoulder. I overcorrected, rolled my truck 4 times, broke my back in 3 places. I'm paralyzed from the waist down now. 28 years old and I'll never walk again. And you just kept driving, didn't even slow down. I remembered that too. Aggressive driver trying to merge without enough space. I'd held my lane. It was my right of way. He'd been going too fast. Not my fault he lost control, but listening to his voice, hearing the rage and pain, the justifications crumbled. That was an accident, I said to the empty truck. You were merging wrong. Caller number 3, the DJ interjected. We have Sarah from mile marker 378. Sarah, you're on K-Void. A child's voice, maybe 10 years old. My daddy was a trucker like you. He died when his rig jackknifed on black ice. You were behind him. You saw it happen. You were the witness the police needed to file the report. But you didn't stop. You kept driving because stopping would have meant paperwork and lost time. The report was delayed 3 days. My daddy's body was frozen in the cab for 3 days before they found him. Because you didn't stop. I was hyperventilating now. I didn't remember that specific incident. But how many accidents had I witnessed? How many times had I driven past twisted metal and flashing lights, convincing myself that emergency services were already handling it, that my stopping wouldn't help, that my schedule mattered more. This isn't real, I said aloud. This is guilt, exhaustion. I'm hallucinating. Oh, it's very real, the DJ assured me. K-Void broadcasts on the frequency of consequence. We reach drivers who've accumulated enough karmic debt, enough moments of choosing the road over humanity. You're not hallucinating, Marcus. You're listening. Finally listening to the voices you've been driving past. Mile marker 147 approached. In my headlights, I saw her. Linda Kowalski. Standing on the shoulder in the exact spot her car had been, wearing the clothes she'd died in, her skin gray with frostbite. She turned as I passed, her frozen face tracking my truck. I felt her eyes on me long after she disappeared in my mirrors. The radio continued, caller after caller, people I'd wronged through action or inaction. The waitress I'd stiffed on a tip because I was angry about slow service. She'd been fired that day, couldn't make rent, ended up homeless. The truck stop attendant I'd yelled at for a pricing error. He'd committed suicide a week later, my tirade the final straw in a lifetime of abuse. The driver whose parking space I'd stolen, He'd been hours from his DOT-mandated rest period, pushed himself to find another spot, fell asleep at the wheel 20 miles later, killed a family of 4. Every choice, every moment of selfishness, every time I'd prioritized my convenience over someone else's need, they were all calling in. All sharing their consequences, all making me listen. "You're starting to understand," the DJ said. "K-Void isn't punishment, Marcus, it's education. We want you to know what you hauled alongside your cargo. Every mile, every decision, every person affected. You've been driving blind. We're turning on the lights." Mile marker 203. The man I'd cut off, James, stood on the shoulder in a wheelchair, watching me pass with hollow eyes. Mile marker 378. A little girl, Sarah, held a photo of her father, tears frozen on her cheeks. They were all appearing now, every person, every consequence, lining the highway like spectral mile markers, their presence burning into my conscience with each passing. The road was crowded with my guilt. "How long does this last?" I asked, voice breaking. "The broadcast? Until you reach your destination or until you stop. Your choice." Stop. I could pull over, end the torment, but what then? Face the accumulation of harm I'd caused? Accept the weight of responsibility I'd been avoiding? The idea terrified me more than the ghostly figures lining the road. I kept driving. The callers kept coming, hour after hour, mile after mile, each one a story of harm, each one a consequence of my choices. The DJ's voice never wavered, never tired, smoothly transitioning between callers like this was just another night at K-Void, like destroying someone's soul through forced accountability was routine programming. Around 3 a.m., the nature of the calls changed. These weren't people I'd wronged directly. These were secondary effects, tertiary consequences. The waitress's son who'd gone to foster care after she lost her housing. The family of the driver who fell asleep at the wheel. The co-workers affected when James lost his job. The ripples spreading outward from my actions like waves from a stone thrown in still water, touching hundreds of lives I'd never known existed. "Do you see it now?" the DJ asked. "Every action is a broadcast. Every choice transmits consequences. You've been sending signals your whole life, Marcus, and tonight you're finally receiving the feedback." Mile marker 487. I was 8 miles from Cheyenne, 8 miles from my destination. The figures lining the road had become a solid mass. Thousands of people affected directly or indirectly by my selfish choices. They weren't attacking, weren't even threatening, just watching, bearing witness, making me see them. "When you reach Cheyenne," the DJ said, "the broadcast ends. You'll turn off AM 530 and return to regular programming. The voices will fade. The figures will disappear. You'll go back to your life, Marcus, but you'll remember. K-Void doesn't punish. We just make sure you can never unhear what you've heard. Can never unsee what you've seen." 7 miles. The figures were reaching out now, hands extended toward my truck as I passed. Not grabbing, just touching. Each touch left a handprint on my windows, a ghostly impression of their presence. The windows were covered in thousands of handprints now, obscuring my view, forcing me to navigate by the thin strips of clear glass between the marks. "Some drivers who experience K-Void change," the DJ continued. "They become better, more aware, more conscientious. They start stopping for stranded vehicles, start helping, start choosing humanity over schedule. Some drivers..." She paused. "Some drivers can't handle it. They hear the broadcast and drive off the road, or into oncoming traffic, or park their trucks and never drive again. We don't judge, we just broadcast." 5 miles. A new caller. But this voice I recognized, my own voice. Marcus Chen from mile marker 492. I want to report myself. Tomorrow night I'm going to drive past a stranded vehicle on Highway 287, 16-year-old girl with a flat tire. I'm going to think about stopping. I'm going to look at my schedule, decide I don't have time, and keep driving. She's going to be abducted by the next vehicle that stops. She's going to die. And I'm going to read about it 3 days later and tell myself it wasn't my responsibility. Future crimes. Future consequences. K-Void wasn't just broadcasting my past, it was showing me the trajectory, the person I was becoming. The harm I would continue to cause if I didn't change. Is that real? I asked desperately. Is that really going to happen? It hasn't yet, the DJ said. Futures are mutable. Broadcasting potential consequences is our specialty. Consider it a preview. Tomorrow night, Highway 287, you'll have a choice. We'll be watching to see what you choose. 3 miles. The handprints on my windows were glowing now, phosphorescent in the darkness. Each print connected to a face in the crowd along the road. I could see the individuals now, not just masses, but people. Linda, still frost gray. James in his wheelchair. Sarah holding her father's photo. Hundreds of others, all watching. All waiting to see what I'd become. Final caller tonight, the DJ announced. Marcus from the present moment. Go ahead, caller. My own voice again, but this time speaking in real time, synchronized with my thoughts. I don't know if I can change. I don't know if knowing is enough. I'm terrified of my own capacity for harm. I'm terrified that even after tonight, even after hearing all of this, I'll still choose the road over people. I'll still prioritize schedule over humanity. Because it's easier. Because it's what I know. Because changing means acknowledging I was wrong, and I don't know if I'm strong enough for that. The DJ was silent for a long moment. Then, honesty. That's a start. K-Void. Thanks you for participating in tonight's dedication hour. We'll be here tomorrow night. And the night after. Broadcasting on AM 530, the frequency of consequence. We hope we don't have to call on you again, Marcus, but we will be listening. Always listening. 1 mile. The figures were fading now. Not disappearing, but becoming translucent, receding into whatever space they'd emerged from. The handprints on my windows remained glowing faintly. The DJ played a final song, something old and melancholy I couldn't identify. And then static. I reached Cheyenne, delivered my cargo, parked at a truck stop, sat in my cabin staring at those handprints covering every window, proof that the broadcast had been real, evidence of the audience I'd ignored for years. The next night, Highway 287, I saw her. 16 years old, flat tire, flashers on. I slowed down, stopped, helped her change the tire, made sure she got safely back on the road. She thanked me, drove off, never knew she'd been saved from a future that would have been. But K-Void knew. At midnight, the radio found AM 530 without me tuning it. The DJ's voice. Interesting choice, Marcus, different from the broadcast prediction. We're updating your file. The handprints on your windows will fade now. You earned that. But we're still watching, still broadcasting. One good choice doesn't erase the past. It just changes the future. The handprints faded. The windows cleared. But I knew K-Void was always there, just out of range, monitoring my frequency, ready to broadcast if I slipped back into old patterns. I drive differently now. I stop for stranded vehicles. I help when I can. I choose humanity over schedule, not because I've become a better person, but because I know K-Void is listening. And I'm terrified of being featured on their dedication hour again. Sometimes late at night, I scan through AM radio. I hear fragments of other broadcasts, other drivers receiving their accountability. Other voices sharing their consequences. K-Void transmits across the lonely highways, reaching into cabins, forcing us to listen. To hear. To know. The frequency of consequence is always on. You just have to be driving through the right stretch of nowhere at the right time. And if the DJ knows your name, if she says you're tonight's featured guest, there's no changing the station. There's only listening and hoping you can change before the broadcast repeats. AM 530, K-Void, the voice of the empty spaces. We broadcast your choices back to you. And we never sign off. Story 5, the cargo container. The sealed container started screaming at the Iowa border, and I mean screaming. Not animal sounds, not mechanical scraping, but human voices in perfect agonized harmony coming from a steel box that my manifest swore contained industrial textiles. I'd picked up the 40-foot container at the Port of Los Angeles, standard intermodal load, delivered to distribution centers across the Midwest 3 times a year. The seal was intact. The paperwork was perfect. The weight was exactly what industrial textiles should weigh. And it was screaming. My name is Sandra Okonkwo. I've been running intermodal routes for 17 years, hauling sealed containers I'm not authorized to open, trusting manifests that describe contents I never verify. That's the system. The container economy runs on sealed boxes and implicit trust. Drivers don't ask questions. We haul what we're told, deliver where we're directed, collect our pay. What's inside is never our concern, until it starts screaming. It began as I crossed from Nebraska into Iowa on Interstate 80 around 11:43 p.m. on February 19, 2023. I heard it through the cabin insulation, a high-pitched wail that cut through road noise and engine rumble, so purely wrong that my hands jerked on the wheel, nearly sending the truck into the median. I steadied, pulled onto the shoulder, killed the engine. In the sudden silence, the screaming was crystal clear, multiple voices, dozens maybe. All shrieking in unified terror, the sound rising and falling in waves but never stopping. I grabbed my phone, ready to call 911, report human trafficking, get police involved. But as I started to dial, the screaming changed pitch, formed words, my name. Sandra Okonkwo, driver TC 4771, Sandra. They knew me. The voices inside the sealed container knew my name, my driver ID, my identity. I got out of the truck. The February wind cut through my jacket, but I barely felt it. The container sat on my chassis, sealed, official tags intact, the metal surface showing no damage or tampering. I approached it slowly, each step feeling like approaching the edge of a cliff. The screaming was louder outside the cabin, more detailed. I could distinguish individual voices now, men and women, children, all speaking my name in different inflections, some pleading, some accusing, some simply stating it like a fact. I put my hand on the container's steel wall. It was warm. Containers holding industrial textiles should be ambient temperature. This one radiated heat like a living body. The metal vibrated under my palm with each scream. Sandra Okonkwo, the voices chanted. Sandra Okonkwo, you're hauling us, you're transporting us, you're complicit. Who are you? I asked, feeling insane for talking to a cargo container. The screaming stopped. Absolute silence. Then a single voice, female, calm. We're the textiles. The industrial textiles. Manufactured in Cambodia, stitched by hands that worked 20-hour shifts. Dyed with chemicals that poisoned rivers. Cut by machines that severed fingers. We're cotton picked by coerced labor. We're polyester spun from petroleum extracted through wars. We're the blood and suffering woven into every thread, and you're hauling us to market. That's not, I'm just a driver, I protested. I don't control what I haul, I don't manufacture anything. You're the connection, another voice said, male, older. You're the link between production and consumption. Without drivers like you, the system collapses. You think you're innocent because you don't see the factories? Because you don't watch the children sewing 16 hours a day? You haul the product of their suffering, and that makes you part of it. I stepped back from the container. This wasn't real. Cargo doesn't speak. Textiles don't contain consciousness. I was exhausted, hallucinating, having some kind of breakdown. But the voices continued, dozens now, speaking over each other, describing conditions in factories I'd never seen, naming people I'd never met, detailing suffering I'd been insulated from by layers of supply chain and willful ignorance. I called my dispatcher. I've got a problem with container CSNU 447821. I need to return it. I can't deliver this. What's wrong with it? The dispatcher asked, annoyed. Damage? Leak? I think there's people inside. I hear voices. I need to get it inspected. Long pause. Okonkwo, that container cleared customs. It's sealed. It's textiles. You don't hear people. You hear road noise or radio interference. Do not abandon your load. Do not open that seal. Deliver as assigned or face termination and possible legal action for breach of contract. But deliver the load. If you genuinely believe there's human trafficking, call police. But know that false reports carry serious penalties. Your choice. Deliver or be fired. The dispatcher hung up. I stood in the wind, staring at the container. Call the police? Report voices coming from a sealed container talking about labor conditions and supply chain ethics. They'd think I was insane. They'd inspect, find textiles exactly as manifested, and I'd be flagged as a problem driver, maybe institutionalized. I got back in the truck, started the engine, pulled onto the highway. The screaming resumed immediately, louder now, more insistent. You're choosing complicity, the voices said. You're choosing your paycheck over our suffering. You're just following orders, hauling cargo, not asking questions. Mile after mile, they screamed. They described factory conditions in visceral detail. 12-year-olds at sewing machines, fingers lost to industrial cutters. Sexual abuse by supervisors, wages too low to survive on. Dormitories where workers slept in shifts because there weren't enough beds. Chemical exposure, causing cancers. Suicides from hopelessness, all woven into the textiles I was hauling to American distribution centers where they'd be sold as cheap clothing, the true cost hidden in the price tag. I didn't know, I said to the voices. I didn't know this is how textiles were made. You chose not to know, they responded. You chose not to look. You chose not to ask. Ignorance by choice is not innocence. I exited the highway at a rest stop, parked under bright lights among other trucks. Maybe proximity to people would help. Maybe the voices would stop if I wasn't alone. But the other drivers couldn't hear it. I watched a man walk right past my truck, whistling, completely unaware of the screaming coming from my container. This was for me alone, my personal accounting. I walked to the rest stop building, used the bathroom, bought terrible coffee, tried to think. I could abandon the load, walk away, refuse to participate. But that wouldn't change the system. Another driver would pick up the container. The textiles would reach their destination. The factories would keep running. My small act of refusal would accomplish nothing except ending my career. Or I could complete the delivery, except that I was part of a vast system of exploitation that touched everything I wore, ate, used, except that my comfort and survival depended on others' suffering. Accept complicity as the price of participation in modern economy. The voices offered a third option. Open the seal, look inside, actually see what you're hauling. I'll be fired, I said aloud in the rest stop parking lot, aware I looked insane. Breaking a seal is grounds for immediate termination. Possible criminal charges. But you'll know, the voices insisted. You'll see. Ignorance will no longer protect you. I walked back to my truck, stood at the container's rear doors. The seal was a small plastic tag with a serial number, easy to break, impossible to hide once broken. My hand hovered over it. Career or knowledge, comfortable ignorance or uncomfortable truth. I broke the seal. The snap sounded impossibly loud. I swung open the doors. Inside was textiles, exactly as manifested. Bales and bales of cloth neatly stacked, professionally packaged. No people, no machinery, just textiles. I climbed into the container, pushing between bales, searching for... what? Evidence? Bodies? Something to justify the voices? The bales were warm. Touching them, I felt textures beyond cloth, the impression of hands. Not physically present, but somehow encoded in the fibers. As I touched each bale, I saw flashes, not hallucinations, more like memories transmitted through contact. A young woman at a sewing machine, fingers bleeding. A man in a dye facility, chemical burns on his arms. A child falling asleep at a cutting table. Each textile carried the ghost of its creation, and touching them forced me to witness. "This is what you haul," the voices said, no longer screaming but simply stating. "This is what textiles are. Labor and suffering compressed into fabric. You wanted to see, now you see." I stumbled out of the container, pulled out my phone, started Googling textile manufacturing, labor conditions, supply chains. The reality I'd ignored came flooding in. Documentation, photos, testimonies. The textiles weren't lying. If anything, they'd understated the conditions. The clothes people wore, the fabrics people used, they came from systems designed to extract maximum value from human suffering while maintaining plausible deniability for consumers and transporters. I couldn't unknow this, couldn't unsee the ghosts in the fabric. The container was supposed to arrive at a distribution center in Iowa City by 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. 4 hours away. I could close the doors, cable seal them to hide the broken seal, deliver, pretend nothing happened, or I could refuse. I closed the doors, didn't seal them, got in my truck, started driving, not toward Iowa City, toward the local FBI field office. If I was going down, I was taking the whole damn system with me. The voices changed tone, surprised. "You're reporting?" "I'm reporting," I confirmed. "I'm breaking my career. I'm becoming a problem. Maybe nothing changes. Maybe the system is too big and too entrenched, but I'm not hauling suffering anymore. Not without fighting it." The FBI agents were skeptical. A trucker reporting that her sealed textile container had talked to her about labor conditions? They thought I was having a breakdown. But I insisted they inspect the container. They opened it, found textiles exactly as manifested. No evidence of tampering, no violations, just cloth. "Ma'am, there's nothing wrong with this cargo," the agent said, exasperated. "Research the manufacturer," I insisted. "Trace the supply chain. Investigate the labor conditions. This container is complicit in exploitation." They didn't. Of course they didn't. No laws broken, no immediate victims, no jurisdiction. I was escorted away, my company was called, I was fired on the spot, my truck was impounded, the container was reassigned to another driver who delivered it without incident. But I'd seen. I'd heard. I knew. And I couldn't participate anymore. I'm no longer a driver, I work at a legal nonprofit now, investigating supply chain labor abuses. We've documented conditions in 17 textile factories, resulting in 3 closures and 12 ongoing investigations. It's not enough. The system is too vast. But it's something. The voices haven't returned. But I don't need them to. Every piece of clothing I see, I hear the screaming. Every textile product, I feel the ghosts of hands that made it. The container opened something in me. Not supernatural, just awareness. The ability to see the suffering embedded in objects, the labor costs hidden in low prices. Sometimes I see trucks hauling sealed containers and wonder what's inside. Textiles, electronics, furniture, all of it manufactured somewhere by someone under conditions I can't see but can guess. And I wonder if the drivers hear voices, if the cargo ever screams. If anyone else has broken a seal and seen the ghosts. The container economy runs on sealed boxes, on drivers who don't ask questions, on consumers who don't think about origin stories, on collective willful ignorance maintained by everyone who benefits from cheap goods. CSNU 447821 is still in circulation. I track it sometimes through shipping databases. It crosses the country regularly, hauling textiles, electronics, whatever needs transport. Different drivers every trip. None of them report problems. None of them hear screaming. Maybe I was hallucinating. Maybe exhaustion and guilt created auditory hallucinations that forced me to confront complicity I'd been avoiding. Or maybe the container really did scream. Maybe suffering gets woven into products so thoroughly that sensitive people can hear it. Maybe I wasn't crazy. Maybe I was just finally listening. Either way, I can't haul anymore. Can't be part of the chain. Can't seal my awareness in a container and pretend I don't know what's inside. The cargo is always screaming. You just have to be willing to hear it. Story 6. The Identical Highways. I've been driving the same 100-mile stretch of Interstate 70 through Kansas for what my truck's odometer says is 16,000 miles, but my GPS insists I haven't moved. The exits are identical. The mile markers repeat. The same gas station appears every exactly 87 miles with the same clerk who doesn't recognize me, greeting me like a first-time customer every time I stop. I've been trapped in this loop for what feels like 3 weeks, but my phone's calendar still shows October 12, 2022, 9:47 p.m. The exact moment I entered this impossible repetition. My name is David Reeves, and I haul automotive parts from Detroit to Denver. On October 12th, around 9:30 p.m., I was approaching the Kansas border on Interstate 70. Normal route, normal night. I remember crossing from Missouri into Kansas at mile marker 0. I remember thinking about stopping for fuel at the halfway point. I remember glancing at my GPS to confirm the route, and then everything became the same. At first I didn't notice. Highway driving is repetitive, same white lines, same road signs, same rhythmic hum. But around what should have been the 3-hour mark, I realized I'd seen that particular combination of billboards before. Exactly that combination: accident lawyer, adult superstore, Jesus saves, in exactly that order. 2 hours earlier. Impossible unless I'd looped back, but my GPS showed continuous forward progress. Then I passed exit 127 again. I was certain I'd passed it 90 minutes ago, the same exit, same configuration, same green sign promising services 2 miles ahead. I took the exit, needing to verify I wasn't imagining this. The service road led to one gas station, one fast food restaurant, one motel. I pulled into the gas station. The clerk was a young woman, early 20s, name tag reading Ashley. She greeted me cheerfully. "Welcome to Quick Stop. First time here?" "No," I said. "I was here an hour ago. You helped me, remember? Diesel on pump 7? She looked confused. "Sorry, sir, I've been on shift for 4 hours. You're my first trucker tonight." She was genuinely confused, not lying. To her, I was a new customer. But I remembered her, remembered this exact conversation because I'd had it before, would have it again. I bought a coffee and a dated newspaper to verify the date. October 12th, checked my phone. October 12th, 9:47 p.m., checked the gas station's wall clock. 9:47 p.m., time had frozen at 9:47 p.m., but I was experiencing duration. Hours were passing for me while the clock stayed locked. I got back on the highway, drove forward, mile marker 128, mile marker 145, mile marker 187, then impossibly mile marker 87. The numbers didn't count down, they just jumped. 187 to 87. Like the highway had folded, like 60 miles of road simply didn't exist in sequence but looped back on itself through dimensions GPS couldn't track. I tried getting off the highway, took exit 94, followed surface roads east. After 20 miles, the surface road intersected with Interstate 70, mile marker 94. the exact exit I'd left from. The loop wasn't just the highway, it was the entire geographic area. Roads led back to the same 100-mile stretch no matter which direction I drove. I tried reversing, put the truck in reverse and backed up for a mile. When I turned around and drove forward again, I passed the exact same landmarks in the exact same order. The loop reset, always forward, always the same 100 miles, always 9:47 p.m. My cargo was 40,000 pounds of alternators and brake assemblies. Time-sensitive delivery. I was supposed to reach Denver by October 14th. But I was trapped in October 12th, 9:47 p.m., forever. I tried calling my dispatcher. The call connected, but every time I explained my situation, the line went to static exactly 2 minutes into the conversation. Every time. Same static, same cutoff. Like the loop allowed communication attempts but prevented completion. I tried calling my wife, same result. 2 minutes, then static. She answered every time, sounding exactly the same. "David, is something wrong?" Every loop, the same greeting, the same concern, the same 2-minute window before disconnection. She didn't remember previous calls. Time was resetting for everyone except me. On what I estimated was my 5th day in the loop, I saw another truck. Same model as mine, same company logos, same cargo configuration. It was driving parallel to me, heading in the opposite direction. As we passed, I looked into the cab. The driver was me. Same face, same expression of dawning horror. We locked eyes for a split second, and in that moment I knew he was stuck in his own loop, passing through my loop, both of us trapped in overlapping repetitions. I tried following him, pulled a U-turn, chased after my own truck, but he disappeared around a curve, and when I reached the same curve, he was gone. Just empty highway. The loop didn't allow interaction with other versions of myself. I started marking things. At the gas station, I wrote the date and a note on the bathroom stall. David Reeves, October 12th, loop 6, still trapped. Next loop, I checked the bathroom. The stall was clean, no graffiti. The marker had been erased or the timeline had reset. My marks didn't persist. I tried crashing, intentionally drove the truck into a highway barrier at 70 miles per hour. The impact was real. Metal crumpling, airbags deploying, windshield shattering. I felt the pain, felt ribs breaking, tasted blood, then darkness. Then I was back in my truck, intact, healthy, driving Interstate 70 at mile marker 87, 9:47 p.m. The loop had reset. Death wasn't an exit. I tried abandoning the truck, parked at the gas station and started walking. Walked for hours, the highway stretching behind me. Eventually, I crested a hill and saw the gas station ahead. The same gas station. I'd walked in a circle, or the landscape had folded, or distance didn't work normally here. I was always at the gas station, always on the highway, always within the 100-mile loop. I started experimenting, tried different routes, different speeds, different radio stations. The radio was strange. Only 3 stations came through clearly. One played the same 6 songs in the same order every loop. One was talk radio, but the host discussed events from October 12th like they were happening now, topics that were already dated when I first heard them. The 3rd station was static with occasional voices, fragments of conversations from other drivers, other people trapped in other loops, their words overlapping and incomprehensible. On estimated day 12, I started seeing the others. Not just my doppelganger, other trucks, other drivers, all stuck in the same 100-mile stretch. A woman driving a refrigerated rig, her face gaunt and exhausted. An older man in a dump truck, eyes vacant and broken. A convoy of 3 identical vehicles moving in perfect formation. They were visible but unreachable. I could see them in mirrors, glimpse them at distance. But whenever I tried to approach, they vanished. The gas station clerk, Ashley, began changing subtly. Initially, she was cheerful, greeting each loop with fresh energy. But gradually, over many loops, she became more tired, more aware. By what I estimated was day 15, she looked at me and said, "You're the trucker who's been here before, aren't you? I don't remember you, but I feel like I should." The loop was affecting her too, her consciousness beginning to bleed through the resets. I told her everything. She listened, horrified. "How do I get out?" she asked. "I don't want to be stuck in the same shift forever." I had no answer. I didn't know how I'd entered the loop, much less how to escape it. We theorized together during that loop. Maybe a solar flare, maybe quantum anomaly, maybe we'd both died and this was purgatory. None of it explained the specifics. Why this highway? Why this 100-mile stretch? Why 9:47 p.m. exactly? Next loop, Ashley was reset. Didn't recognize me. Greeted me cheerfully like always. The brief awareness was gone. Only I retained memory across loops. Only I accumulated duration while everyone else reset. I started documenting everything. Wrote in a notebook I kept in my cab, filling pages with observations, theories, desperate attempts to understand. The notebook persisted, its contents carried across loops. Physical objects attached to me maintained continuity even when the world reset. That was one rule. I tested it. Took objects from the gas station, candy bars, magazines. They stayed with me across loops. I was a pocket of accumulated time in a world that kept restarting. On estimated day 20, I found the message, written on a bridge overpass in spray paint large enough to read from the highway. Mile marker 247 is the door. Drive until the numbers blur. I didn't remember seeing it before, which meant either I'd missed it or someone had added it recently. But who? The loops reset everything, unless another driver like me with persistent memory had left a message. Mile marker 247 was within the loop. I'd passed it hundreds of times, nothing special about it. But the message suggested driving until the numbers blur. I'd been maintaining normal highway speeds. What if I pushed it? What if speed was the key? I floored the accelerator, 80 miles per hour, 90, 100. My truck shook, cargo shifting dangerously. The highway blurred, mile markers passed in rapid succession, the numbers becoming unreadable at speed. I hit mile marker 247 at 112 miles per hour. Everything fractured. The highway split into multiple overlapping versions. I saw other loops, other iterations, all existing simultaneously. Dozens of copies of my truck driving the same stretch. Hundreds of Ashley serving in parallel gas stations. The loops were stacked, layered, all happening at once in the same space. I saw them all, the woman in the refrigerated rig, the older man in the dump truck, the identical convoy. We were all in different loops, different iterations, but in that moment of speed and mile marker 247, the boundaries became visible. We were imprisoned in adjacent repetitions, able to glimpse but not interact. Then the fracture collapsed. I was back in my truck, decelerating, having passed mile marker 247. But something had changed. My GPS flickered, updated, showed I'd progressed 3 miles. Just 3 miles of actual distance traveled despite thousands of miles driven. But it was progress. The loop had cracked. I repeated the experiment, accelerated to maximum speed, hit mile marker 247 at full velocity. The fracture happened again. GPS updated. 5 more miles of real progress. The loops were degrading. Speed at that specific location was eroding the boundary. It took 37 more attempts. Each time I hit 247 at maximum speed, I gained a few miles of real distance. The loop fought back, mechanical failures, tire blowouts, engine problems that forced me to slow down, resetting progress. But physical damage carried across loops. My truck was falling apart, damage accumulating even as the world reset. I was destroying my vehicle to escape the trap. On the final attempt, my truck was barely functional. Engine overheating, tires nearly flat, transmission grinding. I coaxed it to 90 miles per hour, aimed for mile marker 247, prayed. The fracture opened. I saw all the loops collapsing into a single timeline, the other drivers converging, Ashley's countless iterations merging. The highway resolidified. I was through. Mile marker 348, past the loop boundary. The GPS showed continuous progress. The clock moved. 9:48 p.m. Time had resumed. I'd been trapped for what felt like a month, but objectively was 1 minute. My phone rang. My wife. "David, is something wrong?" "I'm fine," I said, voice shaking. "Just wanted to hear your voice." I pulled into the next rest stop, got out, checked my truck. It looked pristine, no damage, no wear. Like the deterioration had been loop-specific, erased when I escaped. Only my notebook remained as evidence, pages of desperate documentation proving I hadn't imagined it. I completed my delivery to Denver, normal route, normal timeline. But I never drove Interstate 70 through Kansas again. I rerouted through Colorado, added 6 hours to my trips, told my dispatcher I had reasons. He didn't question it. Good drivers earn some flexibility. Sometimes I research Interstate 70 Kansas incidents. Other drivers report strange experiences, time discrepancies, repeated landmarks, GPS failures. Most shrug it off as fatigue or equipment malfunction. But some describe it exactly like I experienced. The loop, the repetition, the trapped feeling. Those reports usually come from drivers who were never seen again. Their trucks found abandoned, drivers missing, last known location somewhere in that 100-mile stretch. The loops are still there, still trapping people, still repeating October 12th, 9:47 p.m. forever for those who can't escape. And I wonder about the others I glimpsed. Are they still driving? Still trapped? Still hitting mile marker 247 at maximum speed trying to crack through? I left a message. Spray-painted a bridge overpass on an alt route. Mile marker 247 is the door. Drive until the numbers blur. Maybe someone trapped will see it. Maybe they'll escape. Maybe I'm leaving breadcrumbs through time for the next victim. Or maybe the loop itself wrote the message. Maybe I found it because I was meant to escape. Maybe the highway lets one driver through per iteration, and I was selected. And now someone else is trapped, driving the same 100 miles, reading my notebook entries that appear in their cab, trying to understand how to break free. Interstate 70 through Kansas looks normal on maps, a straight line through flat terrain, but between mile markers 87 and 187 the highway folds. Time stops, and drivers enter the loop. Some escape, most don't. Their trucks join the ghost convoy, visible only at high speeds near mile marker 247, where the boundaries of trapped time become temporarily visible. Drive carefully through Kansas. If you see exit 127 twice, turn around. If the clock stays at 9:47 p.m., stop immediately. If you feel like you're experiencing the same stretch of highway repeatedly, you probably are. And you'll need to drive faster than you've ever driven, risking everything to break through. The loop is patient. It's always October 12th, 9:47 p.m. there. Always waiting, always ready to trap the next driver who crosses the boundary without realizing they've entered a pocket of frozen time. And once you're in, only speed and determination might save you. Or you'll drive forever, accumulating miles on your odometer that don't translate to distance, growing older in a world that stays perpetually 9:47 p.m., watching other versions of yourself pass in the opposite lane, trapped in your own parallel loop, forever approaching a destination you'll never reach. Story 7. The Service Plaza. The Service Plaza had 47 parking spots, and all 46 visible trucks were mine. Same model, same company markings, same license plate. I counted them twice walking from the highway entrance to the main building, feeling reality crack further with each identical vehicle. The 47th spot was where I'd just parked, my truck. the original, or at least I thought it was original. Maybe I was the copy. Maybe all 47 drivers inside the plaza thought they were the original, and we were all reflections of a choice we shouldn't have made. My name is Jennifer Torres. I haul electronics from Silicon Valley to East Coast distribution centers, expensive cargo requiring bonded drivers and GPS tracking. On August 4th, 2023 at 2:31 a.m. I pulled into the Red Desert Service Plaza in Utah. A standard highway rest stop I'd used 20 times before. Except this time, when I parked and looked around, I saw my own truck. Then another, then another. 47 identical vehicles in perfect parallel parking, like someone had copy-pasted the same image across the lot. I should have left immediately, should have reversed out of the lot and kept driving. But confusion and impossible curiosity overrode survival instinct. I walked toward the main building, passing my trucks, peering into cabs. Empty. All empty, not abandoned. The trucks looked maintained, clean, no dust or degradation. Just empty. Like 47 drivers had simultaneously exited their vehicles and entered the building. The plaza was well lit. Fluorescent lights hummed inside the main structure. Through the windows, I saw movement. People in the food court, the convenience store, walking the hallways. Normal rest stop activity. Except everyone was wearing the same clothes as me. Blue flannel shirt, dark jeans, work boots. Everyone had the same build, the same hair. As I got closer, I could see faces through the glass. My face, 46 versions of Jennifer Torres going about rest stop routines like this, was perfectly normal. I pushed through the entrance doors. The nearest version of me was buying coffee at a vending machine. She turned, saw me, and froze. We stared at each other, perfect mirrors except for the expressions. She looked resigned. I felt terrified. "You're new," she said. It wasn't a question. "Just arrived?" "What is this?" I asked, voice shaking. "Why are there copies of me, of my truck? What's happening?" "It's the plaza," she said simply. "Red Desert Service Plaza. You stopped here at 2:31 a.m. on August 4th, 2023. So did I, so did all of us. Same moment, same decision, except the decision branches. Every time we stop here, reality splits. One version continues on the highway, one version enters the plaza. Except we're all the version that entered. We're all the branch that made the wrong choice." "I can just leave," I said. "I can walk out right now, get in my truck, drive away." She smiled sadly. "Try it." I turned toward the door, walked through. Outside, the parking lot looked the same, 47 trucks, but mine, the one I'd just exited, was now in spot 48. A new truck had appeared in spot 47. And walking toward the building was another me, looking confused, counting the trucks just like I had minutes ago. "It doesn't work," the coffee machine version said behind me. "You can't leave. The plaza duplicates you the moment you enter. The you that walked in stays here. The you that didn't make the choice to stop continues on the highway, unaware we exist." But we're stuck. All of us. Every version of Jennifer Torres who made the decision to stop at 2:31 a.m. on August 4th. "How many times?" I asked. "How many loops?" "Not loops," she corrected, "and branches. Each of us came from a different timeline, a different universe where we made slightly different choices leading up to this moment. But at 2:31 a.m. on August 4th, every version of us stopped here, and every version got trapped." I looked around the plaza. Other versions of me were going about activities. One sat in the food court eating a sandwich. One browsed magazines in the convenience store. One stood at the bathroom entrance, staring at nothing. They all looked tired, defeated, like they'd accepted this nightmare as permanent. "What do we do?" I asked. "We can't just stay here forever." "Why not?" Coffee version gestured around. "Food and drinks are free. Vending machines never empty. Bathrooms work. There are shower facilities. It's basically a highway rest stop that never ends. Some of us have been here for what feels like months. Others just arrived like you. Time is strange. It passes, but the clock outside always shows 2:31 a.m. I walked deeper into the plaza, looking at my duplicates. Some acknowledged me with tired nods. Others ignored me, lost in their own acceptance of the situation. I found one version sitting alone at a table, head in hands, shaking. I sat across from her. "How long have you been here?" I asked. She looked up. Her eyes were red from crying. "I don't know. Weeks. The days blur. I've tried everything. Tried breaking windows. They don't break. Tried forcing open emergency exits. They lead back to the parking lot. Tried attacking the trucks. They're invulnerable. I tried attacking other Ms." She gestured at her arms, showing bruises. "Pain is real. Damage is real. But we can't die and we can't leave." "There has to be a way," I insisted. "This is impossible. Reality doesn't work like this." "Reality doesn't work like anything anymore," she said bitterly. "We're trapped in a quantum superposition. We're all the possible versions of Jennifer Torres who made bad decisions, collected in one place, forced to coexist. And every few minutes another version arrives because in some timeline we're always stopping at 2:31 a.m. I walked to the plaza windows, looking out at the parking lot. As I watched, another truck appeared, Spot 49. Another version of me got out, stared at the impossible convoy of identical vehicles, and walked toward the building. The cycle continued. We were accumulating. How many would there eventually be? Hundreds? Thousands? An infinite number of Jennifer Torres trapped in the Red Desert Service Plaza, all paying the price for the decision to stop? I tried my phone. No signal. Tried the plaza landline. Dial tone, but calling any number resulted in my own voice answering. Another version of me somewhere else in the building had picked up a different phone. We couldn't communicate outside. We could only call ourselves. One version had created a chart on the wall, documenting arrival times and attempt methods. Dozens of entries, each one describing a failed escape attempt. Drove truck at building. Truck passed through building like a ghost. Attempted to stay in truck cab instead of entering. Forcibly teleported inside, tried to harm self to wake up. Pain real, death impossible. Fasted to test if need to eat. Hunger real, starvation impossible. Tried to leave on foot during the day. Outside always shows 2:31 a.m. night. Attempted to create signal fire. Fire burns but produces no smoke visible from outside. Every attempt had failed. The plaza was a perfect trap, a pocket dimension shaped like a highway rest stop, collecting versions of us from infinite timelines, holding us indefinitely. I found the version who'd made the chart. She was sitting in the trucker's lounge, staring at a dead television. "Did you test everything?" I asked. "Everything we could think of," she said. 38 versions of us working together. We've got engineers, one of us has a PhD in physics. One was a computer hacker before becoming a trucker. We've analyzed this from every angle. The plaza exists outside normal space-time. It's collecting probability branches, and there's no exit. "What about the trucks?" I asked. "Our cargo? Someone will notice we're missing. Company GPS tracking will show we stopped here and never left." "Will they?" she asked. "Remember, the version of us that didn't stop keeps driving. To the external timeline, we're probably on schedule. The GPS tracker follows that version, not us. We're the discarded probability, the choice not made. No one's looking for us because from the outside, we don't exist." I wanted to argue, but the logic was airtight. I was the version of Jennifer Torres who stopped. Another version, maybe microseconds divergent, chose not to stop and continued to Seattle. That version would deliver the cargo, complete the route, remain in the main timeline. I was the statistical discard, The quantum trash. More versions kept arriving. Spot 50, 51, 52. Each new Jennifer walked through the doors, experienced the same shock and confusion, received the same explanations. Some refused to believe it, spending hours trying to escape before accepting the reality. Some accepted immediately, joining the collective resignation. We were becoming a crowd, a convention of ourselves. One version organized a meeting. All of us gathered in the food court, dozens of identical faces looking at each other. She stood on a table to address the group. We need structure, rules. We're going to be here indefinitely, possibly forever. We can't descend into chaos. I propose we organize shifts, activities, some semblance of routine to maintain sanity. Others agreed. We divided into groups, some maintaining the plaza, some documenting everything, some continuing to search for escape methods, some simply resting. It was surreal watching myself negotiate with myself, seeing identical faces argue different perspectives, experiencing the strange dissociation of being part of a crowd of me. I joined the escape research group. If we were trapped, I needed to understand why. One version, we started numbering ourselves for identification. I became Jennifer 74, had a theory. The plaza is a probability collector. Every time a quantum choice happens, reality branches. Usually the branches separate, but at specific locations, under specific conditions, branches can converge. The Red Desert Service Plaza at 2:31 a.m. on August 4th is a convergence point. All versions of us who stopped at that moment get pulled here. So how do we diverge? I asked. How do we separate our branch from this convergence? We need to make a choice that doesn't converge, Jennifer 24, the physics PhD, explained. A decision so unique, so divergent that this probability space can't contain it. Something none of our other selves would choose. Something that forces reality to split us off into a separate timeline. Like what? Someone asked. We brainstormed, but here was the problem. We were all the same person. We thought the same way, had the same history, same personality, same decision-making patterns. Whatever choice one of us considered, the others considered simultaneously. We couldn't be unique from ourselves, unless we changed, unless existing in the plaza had altered us enough that we'd developed individual divergences. I looked around at the gathered versions. Some looked broken, some looked determined, some looked angry. We'd been processing the same trauma differently, developing different coping mechanisms, becoming slightly distinct despite identical origins. We need to each make a different choice, I said, all at once. Force a massive divergence, overwhelm the convergence with chaos. Jennifer 24 nodded slowly. Quantum superposition collapse. If we all choose different actions simultaneously, the plaza can't hold us in single convergence. We'll split. Some might escape, some might remain trapped, but it's better than all of us staying here forever. We organized it. Every version of us would simultaneously perform a different action. Simple actions. One would sing, one would dance, one would sleep, one would exercise, one would scream, one would laugh. 94 versions of Jennifer Torres, each committing to a unique behavior at the exact same moment. We counted down. 3, 2, 1, now. I chose to run, sprinted toward the doors at maximum speed, committing fully to the motion, to the choice to flee. Around me, other versions burst into cacophony, singing, shouting, moving in different patterns. The plaza shook, lights flickered, reality bent under the pressure of divergent probability. Then everything shattered. I felt myself splitting, fragmenting into possibilities. I was simultaneously running and not running, exiting and staying, escaping and trapped. The superposition collapsed. Some versions of me remained in the plaza. I could feel their presence, ghost-like, still trapped. But I was moving, pushing through the dimensional barrier, forcing my way into a different branch. I stumbled out of the service plaza doors into sunlight. The parking lot was empty except for one truck. Mine. The clock on the plaza exterior showed 6:47 a.m. August 4th. 4 hours had passed in the outside world. My phone was buzzing with messages, company check-ins, automated GPS reports. To the external timeline, I'd just taken a long rest stop. But I remembered the others. Jennifer 1 through Jennifer 93, all the versions trapped in the convergence. I'd escaped by diverging, by making a choice unique enough to break free. But they were still there, still accumulating as new versions arrived at 2:31 a.m. I got in my truck, drove away from Red Desert Service Plaza. In my side mirror, I thought I saw faces in the windows, all my faces, watching me leave, envying my escape, knowing they were still trapped. I completed my delivery to Seattle, but I can't stop thinking about them, about the versions of me still in that plaza, experiencing eternal 2:31 a.m., waiting for another chance to diverge. And I wonder, am I really out? Or am I just in a slightly different convergence, convinced I've escaped, but actually in another layer of the trap? Sometimes at 2:31 a.m., wherever I am, I feel a pull. A suggestion that I should stop, rest, pull into the next service plaza. I resist, keep driving. But the pull is strong, and I worry that one night I'll give in, I'll stop, and I'll find myself back in the Red Desert, joining the collection of Jennifer Torres versions, adding one more truck to the impossible parking lot. The plaza is still there, still collecting. If you're driving through Utah and see Red Desert Service Plaza, don't stop, especially not at 2:31 a.m., especially not on August 4th, because if you do, you'll find versions of yourself waiting inside. And you might never leave. We're in there. All of us who stopped, all the versions who made the wrong choice, and we're looking out the windows, watching traffic pass, hoping someone will notice us, hoping reality will break enough to let us out. But mostly, we're waiting to see which version of you will join us next. Story 8. The Blackout Miles. There are 43 miles of Interstate 10 through West Texas that I don't remember driving. And my dash camera footage shows me sitting perfectly still, eyes open, hands on the wheel, while the truck navigates itself through 43 miles of darkness. The timestamp shows 16 minutes for a stretch that should take 35 minutes at highway speed, which means I was traveling at over 160 miles per hour through areas with posted speed limits of 75. The video shows no motion blur, no indication of speed, just steady, calm progression through darkness so complete that my headlights illuminate nothing beyond 10 feet. And in the passenger seat for the entire 16 minutes, something sits that the camera captures as a void, a human-shaped absence of light that occasionally turns its non-face toward me. My name is Robert Hayes, different Robert Hayes from another story, different life, same curse of highways. I haul crude oil equipment from Houston to El Paso, heavy machinery that takes specialized permits and careful driving. On September 27, 2023, I entered the Blackout Miles for the third time. The first time, I didn't notice anything wrong. The second time, I felt something off but couldn't identify what. The third time, I checked my dash camera afterward and saw the truth. Now I'm driving into them for the fourth time, knowing what's coming because there's no alternative route and quitting isn't an option, and I need to understand what happens during those 16 minutes when I'm not in control. The Blackout Miles start at mile marker 187 and end at mile marker 230. Officially, this stretch is normal highway, straight road, minimal traffic, standard West Texas emptiness. But every driver who runs this route regularly knows something's wrong with those miles. Not everyone experiences it. Maybe 1 in 50 drivers, but those who do experience it repeatedly. It's like the highway marks you, and once marked, you're subject to the phenomenon every time you pass through. I'm approaching mile marker 187 now. It's 3:41 a.m. The highway is empty. No vehicles ahead, none behind, none visible in the opposing lanes. The landscape is featureless desert. No light pollution from towns, no moon tonight. Just my headlights cutting through absolute darkness and the faint green glow of my dashboard instruments. My dash camera is recording. I've checked it 3 times. I need documentation. I need to understand. Mile marker 187 passes. I feel it immediately, a shift in air pressure like driving through a membrane. My ears pop. The radio cuts to static, and then I'm gone. Not unconscious, not asleep. Gone. Awareness displaced. I'm somewhere else, watching from outside myself, and my body continues driving without me. I can see myself from above and behind. My body sits in the driver's seat, hands at 10 and 2, eyes open and staring forward. The truck maintains perfect lane position. The speedometer is climbing, 80, 90, 100 faster. But the landscape doesn't blur. It's like the truck is moving through space without motion, covering distance without traveling. Quantum tunneling on a highway scale. In the passenger seat, the void appears. It materializes from nothing, a darkness deeper than the surrounding night, shaped like a person sitting casually with one leg crossed over the other. It has no features, no eyes, no mouth, no surface detail. Just absence, a hole in reality shaped like a passenger. And it turns toward my body, the non-face angling in observation. My displaced consciousness can hear it speaking, though it has no mouth. The voice comes from everywhere. "Welcome back, Robert. 3rd passage. You're becoming aware. That's good. Awareness is required for the next stage." My body doesn't respond, just keeps driving, mechanical and perfect. The void continues. "You want to know what happens during the blackout miles. You want to understand the missing time. I'll show you. But understanding has costs. Knowledge changes things. You won't be able to unknow what I reveal." I want to scream, to regain control of my body, to stop this. But I'm powerless, just a spectator in my own life. The void reaches out with an appendage that might be an arm, touches my body's shoulder. The contact looks wrong. The hand seems to sink into my shoulder, merging, passing through the physical barrier. "During these miles," the void says, "the highway intersects with elsewhere. 312 parallel dimensions use this exact space for different purposes. You're driving through all of them simultaneously. Your consciousness can only experience one dimension at a time, so you're temporarily displaced to allow your body to navigate the overlap. Most drivers never notice. Their awareness shuts down, reboots at mile marker 230, and they continue. No memory, no trauma. But you kept checking. You watched the dash camera. You made yourself aware. Now you see me, and seeing has consequences." The truck is passing through strange spaces now. The landscape outside changes every few seconds, flickering between different realities. Desert becomes forest, becomes ocean, becomes cityscape, becomes alien geometry that shouldn't exist in 3 dimensions. Each reality lasts only moments, replaced by another as the truck tunnels through dimensional intersections. "In one dimension," the void explains, "this highway is underwater. In another, it's a landing strip for craft that defy your physics. In another, it's a mass grave from a war that hasn't happened in your timeline yet. In another, it's a nature preserve for beings you'd call eldritch. 312 uses, all overlapping, all existing in the same space. The blackout miles are where the walls between them are thinnest, where travel between realities is possible. I see them, vehicles from other dimensions, passing through my truck like ghosts, structures that exist in multiple spaces at once, beings that travel the highways of their own realities, unaware they're sharing space with us. It's incomprehensible chaos, all existing simultaneously, all navigating the same coordinates through different dimensional planes. "Your body can traverse this," the void says. Bodies are matter, and matter exists in all dimensions with only slight variations. But consciousness is dimension-specific. Your awareness is locked to your home dimension. During the blackout miles, your consciousness is temporarily stored here with me, while your body navigates the overlap. Then you're returned. Seamless, except you started looking, started questioning. That made you visible to me. The void's non-face is inches from my body's face now. I'm a navigator. I exist in the overlaps. I guide travelers through dimensional intersections. Most species don't need my help. They have natural abilities to maintain consciousness during transit. Humans don't. You're dimension locked, so I provide storage. I hold your awareness while your body crosses. Usually that's the end of it, but you made yourself aware. Now you can see the overlap, and that means you have a choice. Mile marker 210, 20 miles completed, halfway through the blackout miles. The dimensional flickering is intensifying, landscapes changing every second, reality unstable, my truck existing in multiple spaces simultaneously. I can see other versions of the highway in each dimension, all layered over each other like transparent overlays. Your choice, the void says, is whether to keep your awareness next time. I can integrate your consciousness into the crossing. You'll remain aware during the blackout miles. You'll see what I see, experience the dimensional overlap consciously. But that awareness is permanent. You can't go back to peaceful blackouts. Every crossing becomes a conscious journey through 312 realities. And conscious crossings take longer, much longer. 16 minutes become 16 hours subjectively. You'll experience full duration while your body completes the crossing in normal time. 16 hours of dimensional chaos compressed into 16 minutes of external time. Why would I choose that? I try to ask, but I have no voice. The void hears me anyway. Because the alternative is worse, it says. Now that you're aware of me, ignoring me becomes harder each crossing. Your consciousness will start bleeding through. You'll experience fragments of the overlap while trying to maintain normal awareness. Partial blackouts, flickering perception, eventual madness as your mind can't reconcile being in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Full integration or eventual psychosis. Those are your options. Mile marker 220, 10 miles remaining. The dimensional chaos is at its peak. I see impossible things, structures that extend in directions that don't exist, beings that operate on timescales incomprehensible to human perception, colors that have no names, sounds that are simultaneously frequencies and entities. My body drives through it all, untouched, protected by the void's navigation. Decide now, the void says. This crossing ends in 3 miles. If you choose integration, I'll begin the process. If you refuse, I'll return you to your body and you'll deal with the consequences of partial awareness alone. I don't want either option. I want to never have looked at the dash camera. Want to never have become aware. Want to be like the other drivers who pass through the blackout miles in peaceful unconsciousness. But that's not available anymore. Awareness can't be reversed. I've seen too much. I choose integration. The void nods with its non-head. Interesting. Most humans choose denial. We'll see if you can handle it. Mile marker 230. The truck crosses the threshold. I'm suddenly back in my body, awareness returned, sitting in the driver's seat with no memory of the last 16 minutes except I do remember. The integration worked. I remember the void, remember the explanation, remember the choice. Unlike previous crossings, this one left memories. I pull over at the first rest stop, shaking. Check the dash camera. The footage shows the same as before, my body driving calmly through darkness. The void sitting in the passenger seat, 16 minutes of missing time. But now I remember. And the void was right. Remembering changes everything. Over the next 3 weeks, I made 2 more crossings. Each time, I remained conscious. Each time, I experienced 16 hours of dimensional chaos in 16 minutes of real time. Watching 312 realities overlap, seeing structures and beings and geometries that defy description, navigating through spaces where physics work differently. It's overwhelming, exhausting. By the time I emerge at mile marker 230, I'm mentally drained like I've been driving for a full day straight, though only 16 minutes have passed. The void talks to me during each crossing, explains the dimensional mechanics, shows me how different realities use the same space, points out beings traveling through their own versions of the highway, unaware of us. It's educational and horrifying. I'm seeing reality's infrastructure, the supports and overlaps and shared spaces that existence requires. And I can't unsee it. Worse, I'm starting to see overlaps outside the blackout miles. Brief flickers of other dimensions bleeding through during normal driving. A building that momentarily exists in 2 states. A vehicle that phases through solid matter. Sky colors that shift to impossible hues for half a second. The dimensional walls are degrading for me. The more crossings I make, the more my consciousness integrates with the overlap, the more I see things that aren't supposed to be visible in my home dimension. The void warned me. Integration is progressive. Each crossing attunes your consciousness further. Eventually, you'll perceive multiple dimensions simultaneously all the time. You'll see the full overlap everywhere, not just in the blackout miles. Most humans who reach that stage go insane, unable to distinguish home reality from the others, unable to function when every location is 312 places at once. How do I stop it? I asked during the last crossing. You don't, the void said simply. Integration is irreversible. You chose awareness. Now you'll become fully aware, fully integrated. Eventually you'll be like me, a navigator. Consciousness untethered from single dimension, existing in the overlaps, guiding others through crossings. It's not death, it's transformation. But your human life ends. Your human perception ends. You become something else. I have 2 options now. Stop driving through the blackout miles, quit my job, find work that doesn't require Interstate 10 West Texas routes, or continue crossing, continue integrating, continue transforming until I'm no longer human but something that exists in dimensional overlaps. I'm still driving, still crossing, because I need to know, need to understand. The human part of me is terrified. But something else, something that started growing after the first conscious crossing, is curious. Excited, ready to see what comes next, ready to stop being trapped in single-dimension perception and experience the full reality. The void says I have maybe 10 more crossings before full integration, before my consciousness detaches from my home dimension permanently. Before I join it in the overlaps, becoming a navigator for the next driver who makes themselves aware. I've made 7 crossings since choosing integration. 3 remain, maybe. Last crossing, the void looked different, less void-like, more formed. Or maybe I'm seeing it more clearly as my perception expands. It has features now, not human features, but structures I'm learning to interpret. Eyes that exist in multiple spectrums simultaneously. A mouth that speaks in dimensions of meaning beyond words. Hands that touch reality itself, not just objects within reality. You're close, it said. Soon you'll see me as I actually am. Soon you'll see everything as it actually is. The overlaps, the intersections, the true shape of existence beyond single-dimension limitation. Are you ready? I don't know if I'm ready, but I'm committed. I can't go back. Can't return to seeing reality as simple and singular. The blackout miles opened something in me, and whatever I'm becoming, it's not human anymore. I'm approaching mile marker 187 now, fourth conscious crossing. 13 more hours of dimensional chaos compressed into 16 minutes. The void is waiting in the passenger seat. I can feel it even before the crossing begins. Ready to guide me, ready to teach me, ready to transform me into something that exists between realities. Mile marker 187. The membrane breaks, my consciousness expands. I see 312 highways overlapping, 312 versions of myself driving through different realities, 312 voids navigating 312 crossings, all existing simultaneously, all the same event viewed from dimensional perspectives. I'm not Robert Hayes anymore. Not entirely. I'm becoming something else. Something that drives the blackout miles eternally, guiding others through dimensional intersections, existing in the overlaps where reality is thin. And somewhere in one of the 312 dimensions, another driver is checking their dash camera, seeing something impossible in their passenger seat, starting to become aware. And soon, they'll make the same choice I made, and the transformation will begin again. The blackout miles are always there, always waiting, always recruiting, and once you see them, really see them, you can never stop crossing. You can only transform. Mile marker 230 approaches, 3 dimensions from now, or 3 crossings. Time works differently in the overlaps. I'm learning that, learning so much, becoming so much more than I was. The void smiles with its non-mouth. Welcome home, Robert. Welcome to the eternity of the blackout miles. And I realize it's right. This is home now. The overlaps, the crossings, the dimensional intersections, I'm never leaving. I'm becoming permanent navigation for Interstate 10, West Texas, mile markers 187 to 230. If you drive through there and something sits in your passenger seat that shouldn't exist, that's me, or what I'm becoming. And if you check your dash camera afterward, if you make yourself aware, I'll be waiting for you at mile marker 187. The blackout miles are always recruiting, and transformation is the only destination.